Hello, everyone. I am here again with my friend Cynthia, who is one of the coolest writers I know. She is amazing,
Thank
and
you.
I love her story. I love her energy. So I am so glad that she is here today with us. So, we are going to talk specifically about how Cynthia overcame a lot of her obstacles and kind of interesting situations to become a published author. And do you mind, before we get into the subject, kind of talking about your books and where we might be able to find them?
You can find them at payhip.com/Cynthia Carver if you want to buy directly from me. Otherwise, you can go to Amazon and pick them up there. So, either way, my books are paranormal suspense. Uh, they're about the psychic, Tracy Richards, and Shamaness and Silhouette is going to be a series of 5, and it will talk about her training as a psychic and how she goes on to help cold case uh, and not so cold case. Some are warm, some of them are extremely hot. Um, and then a small bit of justice leaps into her adult life with her children being in high school. So you get the same main character at different stages in her life through my 6 books at this point. So that's me.
Yes, and I need to read them because oh my gosh, I had a crazy psychic story yesterday, and I need you to write this maybe in one of your stories where I swear I had a psychic connection with a car. With a car. The car
Could be.
told me it was upset about something, and like that there was something broken in the car. I didn't know anything about this, and I told my sister, I'm like, your car is upset that there is a wire that is not fixed. And she's like, oh, it's the window wire. And I'm like, all right. So I'm thinking you need to do a in maybe one of your mystery stories. Maybe she has a psychic connection with a car to solve a mystery.
Could be, yeah.
All right,
N
all right.
now my father-in-law had, one of his cars, um, not my father-in-law, but my brother-in-law, not that it really matters, um, but it wouldn't let people that it didn't like in it. It would lock all the doors.
God, that's great. All right, I want that in one of your books. But anyway, so yes, and I think your story of how you were brought up is very interesting because you there aren't a lot of people in your situation. So do you mind
No.
kind of talking about your childhood and upbringing?
I am Métis, that's M and the E with the asterisk over it, TIS, and I was raised in 2 cultures. My father raised me Native only, and my mother, she was Native, and her grandmother and my great-grandmother, uh, practiced the Celtic way instead of the Native way. So, I I'm gonna say I had the best of both worlds, even though if you're Native, you're probably going, "What? No way." And if you're Celtic, you're going, "No, you don't blend those." And you don't. You don't blend them. You either practice the Native ceremonies or you practice the Celtic ceremonies. And in the book, she the protagonist will use the Native ways, but when I only share the Celtic ways. So it's almost like I don't know what I'm talking about in my books, but I do. And, so I was not raised Christian, and when I moved to the town that I'm currently living in now, I tried. I tried really hard to fit in. I did not. I just did not fit in. The, it wasn't so much as being racist because of my nationality or my ethnicity, but it was because I didn't go to church. I didn't have a Sunday school I belonged to. And I tried the Methodist and I tried the Quaker. The Quaker actually let me go through, oh, I forget what they call it, but it's where you take classes to convert. And just before I got to the final stage, they told me not to come back. So, um, so that was a little bit about growing up. I was trained to take over the position of my parents, who were medicine people, and that's where I'm at now. We have a very small tribe, so they don't call on me. They call on the MD down the street. He graduated in school with me, so he's a good guy. But I guess the biggest thing when it comes to writing is I didn't learn to read until I was 28. I graduated because I remembered everything. It was like you tell me something, and I soaked it up like a sponge. But as far as reading the textbooks and following along that way, I didn't do that very well. But my mom and my dad's mother sat me down with a grocery bag, and they were the brown paper bags at that point in time, and they were full of romance. So my grandmother read it, my mom read it, and then they gave it to me, and I was expected to tell them words that I would learn the meaning of, different, larger words, and I was also they would quiz me on comprehension because I knew that this word says mind and this says set. So together it's mindset. Here's a soda. Now you use that in a sentence and I would not be able to comprehend it. So individual words I had, but the comprehension of it I didn't. And my eyes would jump all over the place. I'd be reading along here and then jump down there and then come back up here. So nothing was making any sense to me. And then after I did my first cold case, well, it was actually warm at the time. She had been kidnapped, but they didn't know where she was at, and they were pretty sure because it was 72 hours that there's a good possibility she was deceased, and she was not. This was a human trafficking ring, and things. I told them where she was at, but because I was so young, I was really young, and so they didn't believe me. They had called my father and his brother to work on the case. And I came in and started going, oh, this is what I see. And this is where she's at. And, she's got this bracelet on and they're going to identify her as the wrong person. And Small Bit of Justice is that story written with an ending that I was more comfortable with instead of what really happened.
I know for me, when there are things that I'm still upset about from my past, like just writing them out in whether it's in a journal or in a fictional way, in a way that you would have been more comfortable with the ending, like it's so therapeutic for you. And I'd love to hear more about how writing has helped you in your life and how your life has really impacted your writing and with your culture and everything.
Well, I put my culture in my books, and the writing is therapeutic. I mean, I would have nightmares about, not finding certain people that I was tasked with finding. Um, I also did, what do they call that? Remote viewing. I would do that. And that combined with my intuitive ability was really, really accurate. And I enjoyed doing that and working that way. And I did that up until 2017, and I retired as a cold case psychic. I don't do that anymore. I mean, I have fun. Like, we should get together on your Facebook group someday, and I'll just do an hour's worth of reading, and anybody can come in and they can ask a question, and I'll throw the cards, or I'll do something like that. So the Shamanist and Silhouette, there is a and this is Sabrina. There is a poem in the very beginning of each book, and it was written for me by an elder when I first started my apprenticeship training. As a medicine person, we have what we call an apprenticeship, and you work with. It was not my father; it was one of his brothers, and but it's not somebody that's close to you or within your tribe. So I went and I trained with him, and I trained with him for 11 years. And then I came back and I brought what I knew, and I would do readings. I did readings. Basically, I was a single mom, so I did readings 40 hours a week. That's grueling. When someone tells you that they're an online psychic, if they're doing 8-hour days, they don't have the energy to do anything else. Now, they can either say, "Oh my, I'm so bummed. I can't do this because I'm just so tired," or they can learn to embrace it and say, "Hey, I'm really exhausted today, but you know what? I'm not going to work that hard tomorrow, and we can do whatever you want to do tomorrow." But I think that's one reason why I lasted as long as I did, was the fact that I always tried to find the positive, the optimistic outcome. I mean, you can sit down and you can say, "Oh, this is an excuse, and I can't do anything because of this." And I can say, "Well, what's the other point of view?" Now, you may toss back to me, "Oh, but this is life." Well, you have a choice in life. You can make your choices. Uh, you know, when my eldest daughter ended up pregnant, I mean, I had a 2-bedroom trailer, and there was four kids. My eldest was now pregnant, so he's going to soon have a baby. Now, I could have got really upset. I wasn't happy about it, but instead, it was like, okay, so how are we going to make this work? And I got to say, it was fun when she brought him home. It was absolutely wonderful. He is only 13 years younger than my youngest daughter, so that tells you how kind of close everything was, coming. But if when you have obstacles that come at you, and if you can say, okay, what's the worst? Okay, what's the best? And if you can accept and point someplace in the middle, on the upside of that scale, it's always going to come out a winner. I don't know if your Facebook group is a witchy group or not, but if it is, or you have any witches out there, young witches, you might want to think about, okay, so when I cast a spell and I want my way to happen, well, you don't want to get into the karmic. So if you want a better job and the person who has your job got it because of favoritism or whatever, the easiest way to do that is when you do your spell to to cast for you to get the job you want, you're going to ask that that person find a job more to his or her liking. So you're going to ask that that person get a better job. And it doesn't matter that when he or she takes the job that it's not better. The only thing that counts is whether or not the person that is making the transition from one job to the next believes it is for the best. And that's what you want. You want them to be happy. Then you move
I
in.
love that.
Then
Yes.
you move into that space, and because you wanted them to be happy, then you're happy. And if you're not, you need to look at how you created the job.
So I started getting a lot of I started attracting a lot of trolls at one point, and I realized
Mhm.
that my energy was just really like wonky and weird. And I started like this might sound silly, but whenever I would post something, I would put like a blessing kind of on my
Very
posts
good.
to try to attract people who would have the same energy as me. And I was wondering with you, what are some other ways of using energies and magic and love to build your writing career and your community?
Well, one thing for my books, I always ask that my books find their tribe. You know, you have a fan base, but my the people that are going to read my books are not going to be attracted to Stephen King normally. Um, Even though Amazon has my books listed as a cult, and they also have his books listed as a cult. I don't find anything occultish about his, but you know, whatever. um, but so I put with each one of my books, and I just had a release yesterday on book 4 of the Shamaness and Silhouette. And I ask that it find its tribe of readers, that it attracts the readers, the fans that are going to enjoy it the most. And I don't have a lot of reviews, but they speak for themselves, and I accept that.
Yeah, because it's so much better to have
Mhm.
like a small group, in my
Mhm.
opinion, of like-minded, energetic people than, being completely out there, super popular, but attracting the wrong
Yeah.
kind of people. So,
And recently I've befriended a Peruvian shamanic practitioner, and we're going to be holding circles and drummings and stuff in the area. So if my books would take traction and people would want to have and attend the ceremonies that are in book 2, which is called Lessons Learned, I think that would be fantastic. Wouldn't it be so fantastically fun to have all these women or men show up to do ceremony and just ask for all kinds of blessings and then be blessed? I think that would be marvelous. Putting it out there.
I would love that. You mentioned about being dyslexic and not being able to
Mhm,
read, but being able to memorize things really
mhm.
easily. What are some ways that that skill that you learned or just naturally had has helped you in your writing career?
It really hasn't. Uh, I have to have my stuff really edited because it's like English is a second language to me. Um, I English is the only language I speak, but when I write it, I still have the tendency to write things backwards. Not only the words, so not only does my editor have to look for native words, but she also has to make sure that my English words aren't written wonky. Um, this the one book that she just got through editing, which I now have to send back. It I don't know. I must have had a really bad day because she's going, I don't know if this is an English word or if it's MAT. I don't know if it's supposed to be French. I don't know if it's English. I don't know. Um, it looked like, somebody had bled all over it with all the red markings and trackings that she had done on it. Um, so my editor does double time. And then after I think it's clear, then I have a beta reader go through it. And then I have another editor go through it. So I could say, oh no, I can't become an author. I can't write. I can't tell my stories because I have all these problems. But I'm not going to let it stop me. I'm just going to find a way around it. I'm going to now, my editor that I had been working with for several years, I adored her, but due to her health, she's given up editing totally, not just because of me. So now I do need to find another editor that will be willing to take the time and work with my issues and help me get everything up to speed. I mean, I sent my stuff off one time, and the editor, I sent her a short piece, and instead of telling me the truth that it was more than she could handle, she said she wasn't taking anything new. Well, 2 days before, she was out soliciting on Clubhouse for people to submit and edit. You don't story to someone who has strong intuition. So if you're a mama, guess what? You're going to develop that intuition, and your little ones, you're going to be able to tell when they're storying. And sometimes when you practice it enough, it's going to bleed over so you can tell when other people are not telling you the truth. And so, I got my feelings hurt for about 15 minutes. Then I said, all right, she is not for me. And now, I went on to look for another editor, and I found a fantastic gentleman that is really, he's a romance writer. I know. He's a male romance writer. He includes mysteries and detectives, but there's a strong line for his romance. So he's been helping me at it. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I love how, so I know for me as someone with a disability and with someone who just can't do everything I want to do myself. I want to do everything myself, but I just know that I can't for physical and emotional reasons.
Mm-hmm.
What are some ways to remind ourselves that it's okay to sometimes rely on other people, like how you heavily relied extra on an editor, and for sometimes with my art I might have to use ways, like maybe I want to do it traditionally, but I know that it's not I'm not able to do my painting and I have to do it digitally, or whatever the reason is. When we sometimes have to make adjustments or get help, how can we have that mindset of it's still my work, even though I had to get assistance for it?
I like that question. When I studied at University of California, San Diego, I studied art. I thought art was just fantastic, and I couldn't get enough. I couldn't get enough history. I couldn't get enough technique, and I was just immersed in it. And that was right after I got out of the military. So I was looking for something to take my mind off of departing the military and not being set up educational wise. Not that art was an educational, that was a hobby, that was a self care class. Um, but when you develop your art and you know that you can't, you got a little one, you can't lay a tube of oil paints down or even acrylics because it says do not eat. And what's the first thing they're going to do? They're going to put it in their mouth like a tube of toothpaste. I swear. um, so doing it digitally, it's like sketching. So it's all in your mind, your mindset. So you're thinking, oh, I can't paint. No, but you can sketch.
Some of us feel like, oh, we're put in a bad, like, we weren't privileged with certain, upbringing. We have a disability. We have, a certain ethnicity that's discriminated against. We have whatever the thing is. A lot of us, it's so easy to fall into the victim mentality trap. I'm
Yes.
guilty of doing it myself all the time. And what are some ways that we can, because we've talked about before how victim mentality is literally the lowest vibration,
It
enthusiasm
is.
is the
So much
highest.
better.
What are some ways that we can kind of get from this victim mentality vibration to that enthusiasm, like, okay, I have this obstacle, but you know what, I'm really awesome and I can get to this enthusiasm level.
I would always stop and ask myself, is this an adventure or is this really, you know, a pain? Well, okay, it was usually a pain, but it was also an adventure. I mean, how many people can say they were in bed and their bed fell through the floor? To me, it was an adventure. Uh, I I did not, my parents were providing for us as best they could. And, you know, I would say probably within 6 months, we got a new subflooring and I was up out of, the crawl space. But, but when I got out of the military, I was pregnant and all of a sudden I'm homeless. So back in 79, when it was not um, culturally acceptable or cool or groovy or any of this, I was living in a van. I was sleeping on a Japanese futon at 8 months pregnant. So, um, you know, was that a bad time? Nope. It was an adventure because I was not stuck in a house. I could find a different place to park every night. I usually parked within a distance so I could hear the ocean at night. When I got closer to time for delivery, I parked closer to the hospital so that if anything happened during the night, I was rather close and could manage it on my own. Uh, so it's an adventure. You know, when you don't have when you don't have what you think you need, look at what you do have. Sometimes you really have to search for what you do have. Um, there was times where I made sure my kids ate, and then whatever they didn't eat, that was my dinner. Um, so I was looking for a way out of that situation. And, you know, I was lucky to find they didn't call it a food pantry at that point in time, but it was basically a food pantry. And they wanted all this information about me that I didn't have. Uh, Now that this is back in '79, so I'm not sure how they would do it today, but it was real easy to make up information and give it to them. But and that's what I did. Did I lie? Did I steal? I don't look at it as lying or stealing because I did what I needed to do to provide for my kids. So, but again, it was an adventure, and now I can write about it.
I love that, thinking of it as an adventure, or like, if you like video games, like a Quest or
Mhm.
D&D, like I love D&D. So, thinking of it. So, oh, this is cool material for, my book, but at the same time not telling the universe like, hey, give me these challenges so I could, because that's what I
No.
feel like I was doing before. I was like, oh, I love when bad things happen because I could make a story out of it. And then bad things kept happening over and over and over again. I'm like, okay, universe, I learned my lesson. I have enough stories. But
Right. I can learn from somebody else's mistakes.
yeah,
Um,
finding that balance between being happy about, being accepting of your challenges, but not, wanting more challenges.
right. And I hear somebody thinking, well, I thought you were part of a tribe. I am, but when I got out of the military, I didn't return to the tribe. I was trying to distance myself because
Mhm.
I didn't have, looking at where I was and what I could go back to, I didn't view it as something that I wanted. I didn't want to raise my child that way. And the more time I spent out of the tribe, out of the community, I realized that I was really making a mistake because here in the community, I knew people. I knew who I could trust. I knew who not to trust. Out here, um, in the civilian world that I transitioned into, I didn't know anybody. I didn't trust anybody. And here I had an infant that I needed to provide daycare for. Um, so there was, there's things, and I eventually returned to the community and took my place where I should have been all along, but wasn't.
Love your story, and I love your energy, and you're a huge inspiration for me. So I just want to say thank you
You're
for
welcome.
joining me and sharing your story. And again, I think I have all the links to your books, so I
Thank you.
will put them down below if anyone wants to check out some really awesome paranormal type books. They are next on my TBR, so I am excited about that. That totally sounds like my jam. And yeah, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend.
Thank you. Thank you.